If you're currently looking for a puppy with the intention of raising them to be a future therapy dog, this is the episode for you. Today on the Therapy Dogs Australia podcast, we speak with the lovely Tamara from Whiskey River Ranch about breeding and the important role puppy culture and ENS play when raising puppies. Tam's been involved in the animal world ever since she was young. Having a family so passionate and dedicated to learning and understanding animal behaviour eventually led her to offering animal acupuncture, as well as a range of other services including animal nutrition through the Whiskey River Health Clinic. With the support of her family, a mentor and the breeding community, Whiskey River Retrievers started with the mission of raising healthy, well-adjusted puppies. This is a jam-packed episode, so grab a cup of tea and settle yourself in. Welcome everyone to another episode with Therapy Dogs Australia, the podcast. Today we've got Tamara from Whiskey River. Is it Whiskey River Ranch?
Yeah, that's our overarching business. Yeah, Whiskey River Ranch.
Whiskey River Ranch. And we've got Sam from Therapy Dogs Australia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, afternoon while we're recording this.
Yes, good afternoon. It's going to be a good one because we're going to be chatting about puppy culture and ENS, early neurological stimulation in puppies. And so how about we start with Tamara, just giving us a little bit of an intro.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, guys, for having me on. This is really exciting to be able to get to talk about something that I'm so passionate about. Basically, my background is I grew up in South Africa. If you can't hear the accent,
I picked it up.
I'll try and really hammer it in there. So I grew up in South Africa with a dad who's just insanely animal focused, just absolutely loves them. So he took us quite often to the Kruger National Park, which is just beautiful. I mean, if you haven't heard of it, but it's basically one of the biggest national parks in South Africa. And so, I mean, that was like our weekends almost all the time. So we just grew up being able to appreciate animals in their absolute natural habitat, their behaviours. We would just sit for hours and hours and hours and watch animals. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we're really lucky to have that experience. And in fact, we still go back just for that.
Wow.
So, yeah, we moved over as a family and we've kept going, but we're actually going next September just to spend 2 weeks in the bush with animals. So that was sort of my upbringing. When I moved over here, I studied education. So I'm actually qualified as a primary school teacher. I worked as a primary school teacher in prep and grade 2 for a couple of years. But ultimately that love of animals just kept getting me. So I loved being a teacher, but in the meantime, I was riding horses. Obviously, we got our first little Labrador, Nashi, who we're still super lucky to have. And I started studying animal acupuncture, which is a bit of a segue.
Very cool. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So while I was teaching, I was doing weekends treating people's horses and their dogs. And then that business just sort of blew up for me, and I ended up leaving teaching and going full-time into animal nutrition, massage. I've studied craniosacral therapy, and then ended up traveling all over Queensland and Northern Rivers treating animals.
Wow.
And then when COVID hit, we moved the whole business to our farm, which is essentially where breeding started for me. So I've opened up a little clinic where we mostly treat dogs. That's sort of become more of the focus of Whiskey River Animal Health, it's called. And then we take a couple of horses here still, but ultimately we've just moved straight into doing dogs. So from there, we've kind of gone into the breeding side of it in the last 3 years. We actually adopted our old golden retriever a couple of years back. She's 11 now. And she was the result of not bad breeding. She was well bred. She just got put in a bad situation. And she's sort of the result of a dog that hasn't been well socialized, didn't really get much exposure as a puppy, which is pretty much what we're talking about today. So she is the reason that I went, right, there's got to be a better way to do this. There needs to, be something we can do that we incorporate animal health plus the breeding and then all my knowledge of education and teaching children. So we definitely got a little background there into why we started breeding. That's why it's become such a big passion for me. But yeah, that's the short of it. I could go on for ages, but
yeah, no, that's great.
Sorry, Max. I knew part of that, but I didn't know all of that. So, do you want to let everyone know, how did you come across us? Like, how have we been in touch? What's the go here? How have we found you?
So only really recently, one of my puppies that we've just sold is going to hopefully go through your program in a couple of months. And that family has introduced me to Therapy Dogs Australia. So they were really great in the sense that they did some courses, I think, with you guys first before even getting a puppy. So they knew exactly what they needed from me and communicated that really nicely. So that's essentially just put me in contact because we wanted to make sure that the program we do with our dogs matched what you guys need. So
how cool is that?
Yeah, it's only recently.
That's right. These guys reached out via email and were like, hey, we do this kind of breeding and stuff. And I was like, well, that sounds amazing. So how about you come and have a chat with us, because we need to talk about this stuff. As you mentioned, so we do run courses that address puppy selection and, that sort of stuff, and getting people prepared for this sort of process before they even embark on their journey. But we don't really cover it in heaps of depth. We just sort of let people know, like, you need to do this amount of research and this is kind of what we're looking for and that sort of thing. So that's what we want to talk to you today about, so what are you guys doing on your end? So you've got them obviously, pre-conception, throughout conception, whelping, and until they go home. So we want to know all about that, which is exciting. It's an exciting chat for me.
Yeah, it's very good. I hadn't really heard about puppy culture or ENS before I started working with Therapy Dogs Australia either. So I feel like this is going to be very enlightening for a lot of people. And the more people that can understand what goes into, raising a puppy in those 8 weeks or so, the better for everyone, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll know sort of questions to ask. Yeah. So Tam, do you want to cover the basics of what puppy culture is for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, puppy culture is a program that's developed by a lady called Jane Lindquist. It's really hard to say that, Jane Lindquist.
You did well. That is a bit of a tongue twister.
It's a tongue twister. I didn't realize it until I said it. So she is a breeder. She shows dogs. She's pretty much done everything you could possibly do with a dog. She has bull terriers, and obviously quite a difficult breed to get into things like agility and all that sort of stuff. So her program basically, I want to say it's designed for breeders, but it's also, she's got aspects of it that are great for new puppy families as well. So she's taken a whole lot of different concepts and put together a whole lot of research that, most breeders have actually read and gone through, but have all found it quite difficult to put together themselves into something that's user-friendly. So her program goes week by week of every developmental phase of the puppy. But her overarching sort of idea behind puppy culture is that it teaches breeders to recognize behavioral changes in the puppies and then know what you need to do at those behavioral intervals of their growth and development. So rather than saying you absolutely have to do something at 3 weeks old, every puppy must be exposed to this at 3 weeks old, instead she's teaching you when the puppies do this, their eyes are open or they're responding to something or they have a startle reflex, then we start to add in all these different behavioral challenges and different experiences for them. So it's basically teaching breeders how to socialize puppies. And then within that program of Jane's is ENS, which is early neurological stimulation. And that happens at day 3 to 16 of the puppy's life. So this is pretty much like their most important neurological growth period, is probably the best way to explain it. So they have 0 hearing. Their eyes are closed, and normally in a puppy's behaviour or life period at this point, they're not experiencing anything other than drinking off their mother, being licked, just interaction with their dam or their mother. So what we're doing is we're taking the puppies.
What age was that, sorry, Tamara?
Sorry? What was that?
What age was that, sorry?
Days 3 to 16.
Okay,
yeah. So basically what we do is we take the puppy and we handle it daily, which is what most breeders do anyway. But there's a process for how you do it. So ENS is a program that was originally designed, well, not really designed, but sort of researched extensively by the US military. So they were trying to find a program.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So they were trying to find...
For their working dogs?
Yes, they were Alsatians that they were using. They were trying to sort of work out whether they could influence behaviour later in life by stimulating puppies at certain, developmental periods. So what they did find was that stimulating these puppies, their nervous system and their cardiovascular system would produce gains later in life. So these puppies would respond better to stresses. So not to panic anyone, but basically what you're doing when you're doing ENS is you're stressing a neonate only the tiniest little bit to get them to respond in a certain way. And then that's just sort of packed away for later when the puppies are, experiencing different things in their home. When they're adult dogs and something happens, it's just a way to start stimulating a neurological system that's really naive at that point. The puppy doesn't have to do anything other than drink. It can't even toilet on its own. Their digestive system is completely irrelevant without their mother. Their mother has to lick them to get them to go to the toilet, otherwise they can't. So what we try to do is just speed it up a little bit for them. And strengthen it.
Tamara, can I just check with you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Okay.
I just really want to double check. So was it the vascular system and something else?
Yeah, so it's your cardiovascular system and neurological system.
Yep.
Are the two main ones that you're looking at, which obviously then influences your digestive.
So for anyone that's not aware of that, that's your heart and your blood pumping and stuff like that, and your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Nervous system, yeah.
And they found outcomes from those military pups.
Yeah, I mean, it's a controversial topic actually, but there's been enough research to say that it is beneficial to do in puppies. Obviously, you can overdo it. And
is that what's controversial? Is the argument about
and whether to do it or not with specific breeds, and there's a lot of discussion around it. But at the end of the day, what they're basically saying is just, choose your puppies. Like, we're obviously not going to go and do this with puppies that are stressed or really low birth weights. You're not going to put any more stress onto these puppies. You're basically trying to keep them alive at that point. But puppies that are really robust, they're drinking well, they're putting on weight, you're going to be doing something like this to try to get them to improve. So there's the benefits later in life basically is that they found that puppies mature quicker. So they have a stronger heart rate and a slower heartbeat. So basically that their heart pumps in a way that, when they've compared them to littermates that haven't, and then they expose them to stress, their stress levels are a lot lower, and they do that by checking their heart rates.
So like they've built a resilience up.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep, so you're just conditioning them to different things. So basically, I mean, I can run you through the exercises if you
Yes, please.
If you all want to.
Yeah.
I have a little makeshift puppy here for you.
Oh, that's great.
But if you're a breeder and you want to do ENS, do the program, but these are some examples.
Yeah, so ENS is pretty structured. There's 5 exercises that you have to do with your puppy. So we do it with every puppy in the litter, and we do it one by one, and it's basically a couple of seconds of each exercise. So here's my puppy. So your first one is basically called tactical stimulation. So they do say use a Q-tip, but I like to use, I think my acupuncture background, I like to use things that are a little bit sharp, so the end of a pen. And you're basically just touching the puppy between their toes. So about 5 seconds or so of doing that. And that's pretty much it. That's your first exercise. So that's just stimulating the nervous system to pick up a response to a stimulation or a feeling. It doesn't need to respond in any way.
Now, would that be because the brain... Sorry, Tam.
Ah,
is
go
that
ahead.
because the brain is sending the signal right down to their core?
Yes, absolutely. So it's just basically, it's getting the brain just to go, oh, that's something's happening to me. I need to do something about that.
We have a foot.
We have a foot, yeah.
We have feet.
Teaching them where things are.
Okay.
Yeah. Because remember, puppies would never be
It's like
touched.
a proprioceptive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. That's 100% what it is. So once we've done that for 3 to 5 seconds, we're going to hold the puppy upwards. So like that. So then basically what's happening is blood's draining from the head and the heart's going, well, that shouldn't be happening. And it'll start to pump blood back up to the brain. So you're teaching the heart to work in a way that it wouldn't normally work in. Then directly from that,
so
that's
simple, so smart.
So simple. So from that position we go.
Should people do this to their human babies? Or
hey,
I might take
I want to be the one to say it, but maybe. No, there has been studies done and in chimpanzees, and they found benefits for people for doing this too. So there you go. But don't.
That doesn't surprise me.
I don't want to get in trouble.
But this is not a human. This is not a human baby's information. None of us are professionals in that. Please do your own research.
We need a disclaimer here.
Before you.
Oh, geez! Don't hold your babies upside down.
Sticking your babies with pens.
Yeah, no. Well, it's about to get worse.
Okay. Stick to puppies. Okay. Back to puppies.
All right, back to puppies. So we're
I was just wondering.
All right, don't do this with your kid. Let's head down for 5 seconds. So we're obviously getting the heart to do the opposite here. So it was pumping blood up away from the brain. Now, it's pumping blood, other way around. It was pumping blood to the brain when puppy's in that position. Now we're pumping blood away from the brain. So the heart's being put under a little bit of pressure here to do something it would never normally do at this age. Then from that, we're going to go on their backs. So puppy lies on their back in your hand for 5 seconds. And that's usually the one where they squirm and they don't like this very much at all. And that's fine. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the way the puppy's responding, and there's nothing you try to do actively to fix it. You just let them deal with it.
If they were like in the litter and they were on their back like a turtle, is that, I think I've seen like bitches like nose them back over before, like a turtle.
Yeah, they will.
Is that what they do?
I mean, depending how good the mother is.
Or they just let
them
them
figure
it
care.
out.
Yeah, some of them let them figure it out. If they're trying to feed and they're on their back, that usually happens, and then they'll flip them over to help them, nudge them towards little teats. Okay, so your last exercise, you take a...
Are you holding a
I was trying to figure that out too.
I feel like it's maybe a hedgehog. I think.
Tamara's a bit blurry, so she's like, "Here's my puppy," and I was like, "Oh, she's holding a dog." The whole time she's talking, I'm like, "I'm not sure."
She's actually got a blue hedgehog. I mean, I have a real puppy here, but I don't think she'll take too kindly to being flipped upside down.
I wonder if Tamara's just actually breeding pigs.
I am, blue ones.
She's just not sure.
No, I had a big weekend, guys.
Just in Australia, we call those hedgehogs, Tamara. That's actually not a golden retriever.
They're not puppies.
Oh, well, then I'm a pro, man, because I'm getting these hedgehogs to do some cool stuff. Oh my God.
Therapy Hedgehogs Australia coming soon.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Because it's blurry. I was like,
you're like, they're wow.
I think it's got a long
That was
face.
exactly at the back of my mind too.
Oh, hilarious. So funny.
Excellent. Okay, I'm listening.
All right,
We've held the baby upside down.
All right, we've held the puppy upside down. The next one that you're doing is you're getting a washcloth and you're putting it in the freezer, a wet washcloth, for about 5 minutes, and then you bring it out and you put the puppy on its belly, or the hedgehog on it, and you leave the puppy to move off it if they want. They're not being held on it, but basically we're just getting it to react to a drop in temperature. So that's your thermal stimulation, and those are your 5 exercises.
That is so interesting. The thermal regulation one, is that like, okay, so I'm feeling temperature change, or is it like I'm becoming accustomed to, like I'm feeling temperature change and I need to get out of here, or I'm just becoming accustomed to different temperatures?
More becoming accustomed. So puppies at this age don't regulate their own body temperatures at all. So they have to huddle with their mom and their litter mates, and then we have to keep the whelping area quite warm. So we're in there sweating our asses off so that our puppies can help, to regulate their temperature. So what we're doing is trying to speed up that process in a sense, but we're also getting them just to feel something different, just for their body to go, wow, that's cold, because they would never get that.
That's something a bit different.
So yeah, and that's all that ENS is. It's just exposing the puppies to different things. It doesn't matter how they respond to it. What matters is just that they get that exposure, because they wouldn't otherwise.
That's so cool.
And then that's what helps develop
this
a healthy neurological cardiovascular system.
This is making a lot of sense, Tamara, in what you're saying about they become more mature, because you can see that, like in terms of developmental milestones, you're kind of bringing those forward a little bit in a really soft and gentle way.
Absolutely.
Just so that the puppy is experiencing like, well, this is where you're headed, darling. You're going to have feet. You're going to feel them, and you're going to feel temperatures, and you're going to, your blood's going to move around your body, and all these things are going to happen. It makes sense that by the time then they start walking and things like that, and, bumping into things and experiencing the world, it makes sense that they're more ready for it, because they've had that soft graded exposure to it so early on.
And they're just, it's like kids at certain developmental phases, like they're just so susceptible at this period. Their nervous system just takes us on board really well at that point in time. That's why you don't do ENS outside of those days. It's very specific, and we do it every day.
So the 3 to 16 days is the only time you do it.
Oh, because this is the point where you actually have like a window of time to influence the nervous system, and that the nervous system will react and respond to these things in a positive way, which then gives us the gains later on in life.
So what happens at 17 then? What's the change there? It just
they
means
enter into more of a transitional phase.
They're outside of that.
So what's happening is their eyes are opening, their ears are opening, and so the nervous system has now got all this other stuff to take on board. But up to this point,
so you wouldn't want to also, I suppose, add that when they're going through those natural changes at that point.
Exactly. And then the nervous system changes because it's, it's sort of in this state at days 3 to 16 where it's, the puppy's just trying to eat and stay alive. That's it. And then from, days 16, it's like, wow, now we're experiencing the world and our eyes are open. We're starting to pull ourselves along and crawl better. And there's just a lot more happening that the brain and everything has to account for and do at that point. So we're trying to take advantage of this little period of time where the brain doesn't have much else to do except, do our little exercise.
And that's the that's the ENS window.
Yeah.
And then puppy culture is obviously a bigger umbrella.
Yeah, so she she runs ENS within her program. But if you do listen to there's awesome podcasts with Jane in them as well. But ENS isn't the be all and end all of everything at all. Like most breeders are handling their puppies anyway, and if you've got sick puppies that you're tube feeding, like you're giving the nervous system enough to deal with, and so you wouldn't be doing ENS then. If you're already, if you've already got a mother that doesn't do a lot and you're having to do a lot, that's good enough. Like it's just basically waking these puppies up at this point in time. So you can overdo it, which I think is the biggest thing, and that's where a lot of controversy comes in, because you don't want to overdo it and then end up with puppies that don't respond well to stress later in life.
So that would be like a flooding approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we were to overdo it and
to do it with the wrong puppies.
The nervous system.
Yeah. So you want to, and this is again where the puppy culture program is better in that sense, because it's teaching breeders what to look for and to go, okay, these puppies are not ENS puppies. We're just going to handle them, and we're just not going to put any more stress on them. We're just going to do a more gentle approach even than ENS, even though ENS is pretty gentle.
So anyone that's listening and watching that's like, oh, I'm just going to copy this hedgehog situation
Yeah,
on my
don't.
puppies. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do
You
that.
got to do your
You need some
research.
training.
Professional,
Got to
yeah.
do your research. Yeah.
Don't be spinning your puppies around. Don't be doing any of that. The other thing I noticed that you said as well about this approach is that it's based off, so instead of that chronological age thing of like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's like, sounds like it's more off of developmental markers, so more off of a developmental age for the puppies. Is that right?
Exactly like children. Like, you can't say every 7-year-old is exactly the same. You know, they're not. And it's a lot of, I found with teaching, a lot of what happened before they came to school impacted on how they dealt with things at school. And it's no different. It's no different with puppies. It's some puppies are ready for it, others are not ready, and you've got to know. You know, I mean, I had 3 puppies with their eyes and ears open, and a week later the rest of the litter went. You know, I can't do the same things with the rest of the litter that I was doing with those 3 puppies. You know, I mean, that's a really obvious example, but you know, we look at things like fear responses, or you know, you might have a puppy that goes through the fear phase way earlier than another one, you know, and that's the puppy. You can't be putting other stresses and, you know, other things onto them at that phase. So yeah, I mean, if you're into, I mean, a lot of breeders already know a lot of this stuff, but if you're brand new to it, puppy culture just walks you through it, just holds your hand through the whole process. It's great.
I was just going to say, breeding is sounding very difficult.
It's not easy.
It's very day by day as well.
Very difficult.
Yeah, you're giving up a lot of your life if you're doing it right. So, I mean, we spend the first 2 weeks in the whelping box with the puppies and their mother, like 24 hours a day. Like, I sleep next to them, you know. Like,
no wonder you say you're sweating, like, because you're in there in the hot box.
We are trying to keep them warm, and you've got to be there. So, yeah, there's a lot that goes into the whole process. It's just finding ways to do it that, you know, like you're sticking with good research, and you've got to keep yourself updated. You know, like there's just so much out there. Puppy culture is great, but it's such a tiny part of growing really well socialized dogs. I mean, so basically we start with ENS, and then we move into their critical socialization period. So that's 3 weeks to 12 weeks. And then some of the research even says up to 16 weeks. So, you know, then this becomes like a massive part of these puppies' lives. Like, what you're exposing them to in that time is so important. You know, like, I mean, we go through a whole program here.
Okay, so is that where we're going to? Is that what we're going into next? Is that so? That's after the ENS. We get to 17 days. What's next?
What's the next step?
Yeah. Sorry. So
is this the critical socialization period?
Yeah. So 3 weeks to 12 weeks, and again, 3 weeks like could be 2.5 depending on your litter. There's no exact. That's just like basically that's where we think we're at.
This is your developmental age.
Yeah. So we don't really get stuck on numbers except for the ENS. You know, for those days, because that's, you know,
that's bloody great advice, because I've never heard anybody say that about dogs.
I haven't heard that either.
So that is making me happy. Good.
So
what is that next step?
Okay, so then we go into there's a lot. So we basically go into okay, we go into basically like a communication phase. So we start teaching the puppies to communicate with us, because that, I'm sure with therapy dogs, I mean, I obviously haven't had a lot to do with therapy dogs specifically, but I've had a lot to do with dogs of all different, you know, different jobs, and just the family pet to the agility dog to, you know, high performance working dogs. So I just think there's a blanket rule here that all these dogs need the same thing. Like, you want your puppies to be balanced dogs. You know, you want them to respond well to situations. You want to set these puppies up to leave you and have the best possible life that they can have. You know, you want to give them every little tool in their
regardless of
who they're going to go and what they're going to do.
Yeah,
and that's like, you know,
my understanding is that. Sorry, Tam. My understanding is that dogs of all disciplines, so whether they're military dogs, you know, therapy dogs, assistance dogs, pet dogs, sporting dogs, my understanding is that dogs of all disciplines, we can raise them the same way in this sort of 8-week period that you guys have them, because you're setting them up as a foundation for whatever their life is going to be. Like, it's going to make them, there's no real job for a dog where we don't want a well and appropriately socialized puppy. That's my understanding. Is that kind of what you guys,
that's why we do this, like, because we don't want to see dogs end up in pounds and in situations where they're biting kids, and because as far as I'm concerned, then I've let them down as a breeder, if I haven't done all these things that this puppy needs to have to that point. And then, like, to follow on with it is to educate your puppy families. Like, we're really hardcore about the way we educate people who want one of our dogs. Like, we get our trainer here, they do a full day with him, and then we've got support groups on Facebook for them, and like, we speak to them all the time. Like, we've set them up so well by the time that puppy goes home, that they understand the huge responsibility it is to have a dog, whether it's going to be your therapy dog or not. Like, you're the person that's got to set that dog up so it doesn't end up in those situations. And I think that's that's just good breeding, and that's what breeders need to be doing. Like, it's not about making money, and it's not about, you get these backyard setups that are just pumping puppies out, and these puppies are sitting in yards, they're not exposed to anything, they're, it's sad. Like, and then that's where we get these dogs with issues. And I see them in my clinic, like, they come back to me and I think, wow, these families didn't know what to ask. They didn't know that these dogs need to be health tested. You can do temperament tests. You can expose them to so much. They just don't know. So there's a lot. You set these dogs up yourself as a breeder, but then you've also got to educate the people that are taking them home.
Tamara, what about breeders that let the families choose a puppy out of the litter? Is that common practice, or is that a bit of a thing where, like, as a breeder, you're actually, like, how does a family know what puppy to choose?
Yeah, so they don't.
I chose the puppy that looked at me.
Yeah.
Because she looked straight into my soul.
They do that. They do that.
They do that. But they also all do that, It just happens to be that was the puppy that was more energetic on the day.
That's how I chose my damn Brumby as well, damn it. I'm like, all right, Brumby, just look at me if you want.
Yeah, just come home. Just give me any kind of eye contact, you can come home.
And I was like, she's looking at me and she's licking and chewing, so she's coming to live with me for the rest of her life.
I mean, that's
the little puppy did the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, she's just looking at me, and then she sat down while she was looking at me. So I was like,
if that's not a sign,
that's how you choose your puppy. Is that how much scientific evidence would be behind that method? Is that
0? Nothing. I mean, I chose my Labrador like that, and he is the best dog I ever had. But I think it's an important point.
A legend. So is Winter the Brumby.
Yeah. Look, I can't pretend like I haven't done that multiple times. I have.
We've all done that.
I mean, I'm a bit soft.
We've all been there.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for an emotional connection between a dog and its owner, and we choose puppies for our families, but we definitely take that into account. Like, we definitely know when there's this, connection, and it's usually correct. I mean, the puppies that need the extra loving or are a bit sensitive definitely respond better to people who are calmer and quieter and doing those things. Like, you do see, I mean, we had the perfect example for this therapy dog that's hopefully coming to you guys. So the family came down with their kids, and one of my puppies, who I knew was the most sensitive, he was my smallest boy, and so he was a bit behind developmentally on the puppy day, or the puppy family day. So it was quite an overwhelming thing for him compared to the others. And that family, because of the work they'd done with you guys, recognized it straight away and called me over and said, hey, I don't think this puppy's coping in this situation. Our kids are their kids are divine. Like, they're just the most beautifully behaved children. But she's like, I just think this is too much. The kid's energy, like, this puppy just seems really uncomfortable. He wasn't openly freaking out or anything, but they could just pick it. And then the dog that they chose, who was the one I had in mind for them, was like all over these kids and playing with them and like rolls on his back. And they were just like, wow, this is like, we don't want to say this is our dog, but this is our dog, and 100%. He was the one that temperament tested up perfectly for therapy work. So It does matter, and that the dogs do feel it, and it is an important part of picking. And I think breeders need to watch how their puppies interact with people. I think that's really important. But it's definitely not.
I'm so proud of them for taking on all that information and
they've been
recognizing
amazing.
that and then
It's a
talking to you
big
about
deal.
it. That's
Yeah,
so
it's a
cool.
life decision.
And that's
Legends.
what you need to do. You know, you got to, if you're going to put your dog, I mean, we've just said before, like, it doesn't matter what they do, every dog should grow up this way, but you do need to tell your breeder that. You do need to say, look, hey, I'm thinking of therapy work, or hey, I'm thinking of this, because you need to work with them. You're going to work with them a lot more, you know. So there was a lot of extra stuff that we
and there's
did too. So
and there's like heaps of variation in the litter, isn't there, Tamara, across like the temperaments of the puppies.
Yeah,
so
completely,
you know it's hard, and we're all in love with puppies, and it's really tricky. You got your heart set on a litter and that sort of thing, but ultimately if the right dog's not in that litter, you really should wait for the next litter.
You can't make an emotional decision, especially when you're trying to get a dog for a purpose like that. Because if you pick the dog that's not going to cope, it's not fair to the dog, but it's not fair, you know, to you either.
And it won't work.
So it won't work.
It won't work.
Unless you're willing.
You can do all the ENS you like.
We get teams that are like, listen, exactly. That's exactly right, though. But it's, you know, there's that variation in brains and genetics and things like that. But if a team, if they're willing to, you know, say some teams contact us and they're like, look, we might not be right, but we're willing to do the training and find out. And if it's not right, then it's not right, but that's fine. We just want to train our dog anyway and find out more about it and all that sort of stuff. And I love those teams, because I think that's the best attitude to have, to come into this and go, look, we're just going to, you know, we've set ourselves up as much as we can, and we're going to see how far we get. When the teams have purchased a dog, you know, they've gone out and found a breeder and found a puppy or whatever, however they've come across a dog, but they've purchased the dog with the intention of it having a therapy dog career. Lord help me with the amount of pressure that's on that scenario, because they're paying, you know, up from anywhere between $2,000 to $10,000 for a puppy, depending on what breed they've gone for. Then they are training the dog as it's a puppy, putting all this time into it. Dogs are expensive, like all their vet care and all that sort of stuff, all their feed, all that sort of stuff. Then they get them, you know, come to the train, do the courses, do the assessments. By the time they're finished, some of them have got between a $10,000 to $15,000 dog that we then fail on a temperament assessment, $150 temperament assessment, and go, mate, like, you're not taking this dog to a school. That ain't happening. And, you know, like, it is just foresee, guys, the end of that journey. Like my dogs that I have now, you know, I protect them. My dogs wear GPS collars. I live on a 10-acre farm. I supervise them while they're out and about, out in the, you know, playing in the horse paddocks and stuff. But just in case, they're wearing GPS collars, mate. So I ain't losing no damn dogs, because it cost me a fortune to replace them. First of all, I love them, obviously, with my whole life.
That's a given.
But we're just talking about the financial side of it. Like, it cost me a fortune commitment to replace these dogs. It's a huge, and time. So you also have to get a puppy to 12 months. They have to be 12 months old at a minimum before you can be working with them. And you've got to like put aside all the time. Like I was looking at Nala, my youngest lab, she's 3 at the moment. And I was looking at her today, just playing in the pool with the kids and stuff like that. And I was thinking, someone said something to me about how, like, oh, the kids, you know, dogs are out with kids or whatever. And I was like, oh, everything's just so good right now. Like, she's 3, my other dog's 7, and my other dog's 11. I was thinking, you know, I'm not ready for another puppy, you know, like it's big. So much work. It's a huge, man. Like when I get a puppy, I put 12 months into a puppy when I get them. And I haven't had to do that for 2 years, and I'm loving life. Like, I'm just chilling, man. Like, the hard work's done. But the end of the road, like, if you can foresee, and I know it's hard for people that aren't experienced, but if you can try and do some forethought, or like Tamara's saying, these this mutual client that we have that has come along to our workshops and spoken to us beforehand, to really get that understanding of, you're making a massive investment when you find a puppy and you're destined, I really want this to be a school dog, or I really want this dog to work with me in my private practice. So I really, really, like, if you are hell-bent and heart set on it, please do not make an emotional decision on a puppy. Don't do it. It's going to cost you all the time and money in the world. If you're like, look, I'm going to give it a crack, I want a puppy anyway, if it ends up being just a pet and it's being just a pet, babe, follow your heart. Like,
different.
You know what I mean? Like there's different journeys for different people. And if that's a part of your journey is going, look, if I could take it and, do animal assisted therapy with it, that'd be fantastic. But if I can't, then it's just my soul dog for the rest of my life. It's life and I love it. And follow your heart, make that emotional decision. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you're committing 100%.
If you're not going on that journey, mate, don't
Take
be
the extra
emotional
time.
about it.
Yeah.
Take the extra
It's a
time.
hard
What's
thing
another few
on-
months?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're making the right decision.
Yeah. And you got to know what you're getting, like, because it's not even just that, it's health issues as well, like you don't want to be buying a dog just anyway because, hey, that one was $2,000 cheaper and whatever, but I can guarantee you're going to have problems, like, because the amount of extensive health testing that we're expected to do being an ANKC breeder, like, and just being ethical, like, we don't want to breed problems, So it's worth doing your homework.
Yeah, you love them.
Yeah, like definitely doing your homework on, what your breeders are doing. Like, are they doing all the right testing for the breed type that you've picked? You can find that out on any of like the club websites, like if you're looking at a golden retriever, go to the Golden Retriever Club and they have a whole list of things you should ask your breeder, like, and what diseases are really prevalent in the breed. Have they been tested? Have they been DNA'd? Have their hips and elbows been done? How are your dogs? How's the breeder feeding them? Like, because that's a huge part. Nutrition's a massive part of how you grow your dogs and their development and that as well. So,
what do you feed your dog?
Oh, I get in trouble here. My dogs are raw fed.
Yes.
Yeah. So we raw feed. I have 6 dogs. They cost me an absolute bomb, but they are the absolute world.
Worth it. Yeah. Dougie's coat is amazing as well. It was quite dry and flaky and he's having skin things, and since he's been on raw, he's much better.
It's awesome. It's so good. Even like just for whelping, I just have no problems. Like, you get problems and there's things that happen that are totally outside of what you can control, but in general, like, our dogs are fit, healthy. We have, they free whelp easy. Our puppies grow well. They grow slowly, which sometimes isn't desirable in the show ring, but me and we have a really good neurosurgeon and a specialist that does all of our testing on our dogs for us, and he laughs. He goes, if you come last in the show ring with your dog's Tam, it's definitely going to have good hips and elbows. So, because ours are smaller.
There you go.
Isn't that
I get probably crucified for this. I'm sorry, Golden Retriever. But it is.
We now own this content and we can't take it.
Yeah, no. Whoops. Can we cut that? But, it's, our dogs are tiny compared to some of the ones in the show ring, and like,
So Nala, my 3-year-old lab, she is like 21 kilos and like, you can't, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see, but about this much shorter than my male lab, who's like 11 and a half. And she is the best size, and she was raw fed from when I got her. My border collie, the breeder, actually raw fed him when he was a puppy too, which is one of the reasons I chose that breeder. But she is the best. Everyone loves her. Like, she was slow to grow and she's just more compact, and I can see the difference in her compared to these, obviously we've trained a million Labradors. I've come across a lot of female Labradors and they are too big. Like, that's just my personal opinion. I'm not a Labrador breeder, but far out, man, these dogs get big and they're fat and chonky. I'm not going to talk about anyone specifically, so settle down if you've got a lab with us. Generally speaking, they're fat, they're chonky. This thing, mate, she is a unit. That TikTok where it's like, I'm fascinated.
Yes.
You know that one? Every time she runs, I just hear that in my head.
Yeah.
Because she just sends it. Like,
and they should. They should. They're working dogs. They're gun dogs. They should be healthy and fit.
I take her out. Been on a few trail rides on the horses and just let her trail along behind, and she's a unit, man. Like, she's sweet. She's just going like So cool. I absolutely love seeing that in her, that she isn't this, exaggerated version of what a Labrador has been and should be. She just happens to be this kind of really balanced looking type of dog, and you look at her and go, that's a dog. You just look at her and go, yeah, dog. Like, it makes sense from, back from the 70s and 80s when we all just had dogs and they were just a dog. Like, that's a dog. They just look like a dog. They don't look like this big fat polar bear that's cruising around and struggling to breathe, struggling to move. It's so much better.
It is, and they do mature the same, I find.
It's sad that that's the thing.
There's not many breeders in our group. Like, we have a really great group of mentors and stuff in the Golden World, but there's not many that raw feed, and there's a lot of fear around it, I guess. And like, I was really lucky. My mentor did raw feed for a long time, ended up going back to kibble because a lot of families, it was just hard to get them to follow through properly with raw feeding. But what I've found, like, I've stuck with it, and I haven't been breeding very, very long, but we've stuck with it, and our first sort of girls that we've kept have hit maturity now. And now they're the same, they're the same size as the dogs that hit it 6 months before them that were kibble fed. So from a health perspective, and I know that our specialist who we use would appreciate me saying this, but his comment every single time we bring our dogs in is like, I just wish more dogs looked this way. I wish that they were grown this slowly. Your hips and elbows are phenomenal. These dogs are, super fit. Coming back to the ENS thing.
That's the feedback that you want as well. I mean,
exactly. Like, for me personally, because I'm so into animal health. Yeah. Like, that's my goal. I love showing my dogs, and I think it's such a valuable thing to do in terms of confirmation and experiences for them and that. And but I definitely 100% I'll take my skinny dog over anything. Like I think it's beautiful to see these working dogs fit and healthy and growing slowly, because honestly it makes such a difference for them later in life. Like, the
general public see a appropriately sized dog and think it's underweight.
Yes.
Like, we see that all the time.
Absolutely.
They're meant to be skinny.
It's too skinny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's how they're meant to, like, you can body score them. That's how they're meant to look.
Yeah.
Just every other dog you see is overweight, and it's exactly the same with humans. All that's doing is shortening their life and making their life more difficult.
And it's setting them up
living.
For these genetic issues to take hold, like hip and elbow dysplasia and stuff. Like, you put too much weight on them too quickly.
Yeah, the extra weight. Exactly.
The show rings are coming around. I am noticing the weight thing isn't necessarily 100% what the comments are. It's more just that ours are smaller at that age. I mean, my 6-month-old looks way younger than dogs her age, and all of them. And regardless if I bred her or someone else bred her, it's down to diet and nutrition for me, 100%. They're just smaller.
Yeah.
And that's good for me. They mature the same size or an appropriate size according to the breed standard.
Yep.
But they are recognising that in the ring. They're not really putting up a lot of hugely overweight dogs, but it's more just like, oh, she's a bit tiny for, And again, it's just what people are used to seeing, I suppose. So coming back to the ENS thing.
I did a nutrition seminar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, before we move on from diet, I did a nutrition seminar with Narelle Cook recently. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that, she is phenomenal. And she has canine pharmaceuticals as well, which is all of her like naturopath. She's a naturopath. And so she's got all her naturopath products and things like that. Amazing. Like, I learnt so much, and I already knew a lot before going in. But yeah, super cool. So if you're interested in diet and things that we're talking about now, look up Narelle Cook.
Yeah, she's next level.
I'll also put that in the description so people can find it more easily.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Sorry, Tamara. On to
with the ENS thing. When we took our first bred whiskey retriever to have all her health tests done, the one thing that he commented on, which I thought was really, really cool, and I attribute down to ENS, was she was obviously hadn't been in a vet, aside from just vaccinations, and we went into a huge big veterinary hospital on the coast. It's a lot happening. Most dogs are kind of stressed in that situation. She's walked in, laid down, really chilled, and he's gone to listen to her heart, and he's gone, like, it's just super slow. She's completely relaxed. He goes, that's just such a nice, healthy stress response to what's happening. And like, there's dogs crying out the back, you know, like she had just turned 12 months old, and he was just like, she's just like, does not care. He goes, and normally when dogs come in, I listen to their hearts, and they're definitely up, you know, like there's definitely just a little bit of excitement. And he's like, that's just a really nice, slow, sensible heart rate that a dog should have. And like,
I would literally take a selfie. I would literally take a selfie of that moment and frame it on my wall. I was
so proud at that moment.
I would be so
honestly.
proud. Like,
that would
I
be
would
amazing.
just be so proud. That, because the greatest compliment anyone could ever give me would be, this animal seems quite well adjusted. Like, I love when people, that's it for me. Like, whenever I just took 2 young Brumbies to a show a couple of weeks ago, and they were amazingly behaved. Aww. And like, there's all these domestic horses just cutting sick, like they were like, and I was like, holy man, like, this horse has been out of the wild for 10 months, it's 3 years old, you know, like it was just such a, like, you know, they're announcing over the speakers and stuff, these horses are wild, you know, and stuff like that. They were just perfectly behaved. And I was like, and they just, the only reason they can do that is because they were ready for it, you know. And I got 4 Brumbies, and I chose the 2 that, like, we're talking about, like, that I think were ready. And it's, you know, it's a part of their training. I don't really care about showing and stuff. I care about getting the breed out so people learn about Brumbies. But, you know, that is the greatest. And I didn't need anyone to say it to me in that setting, but the greatest compliment to me was like looking at these horses and then looking around at these domestic horses and I'm just going like, we're on the right track.
You can influence
here.
an animal so much, like positively or negatively.
Greatest.
Yeah, I mean, it's the greatest sign. That doesn't lie. You know?
The biggest goal. The biggest goal is to have a well-adjusted animal, and if you're a parent, a well-adjusted little human. Mm-hmm. That's the greatest goal, in my opinion, my personal opinion. Yeah, really cool. So do we need to touch on, so what should we be doing tomorrow? Like, you know, I looked for an ENS puppy culture program breeder when I was buying my lab 3 to 4 years ago, and there was like 0 around. Has that changed?
Yeah, I think it has. Definitely the mentors I've had have done puppy culture and then created their own thing out of that. That's how I found out about it, through them. I mean, there's variations of how well it's being done. So I guess, again, that's just questioning and like calling your breeder and actually talking to them about it and asking, like, what specifically do you do? Like, it's one thing to have the puppy culture file sitting here. Do you actually do it? You know, like, and then
can they go through the exercises?
Yeah, because there's a lot in there. Like, it's full on, and then when you're cleaning up after 8 puppies, you know, it's pretty hard, like, to get everything else done as well. So, but you know, I just think I'm not a dog trainer at all, and I've definitely had enough to do with dog trainers and working with animals and whatever, that you have a sense of what you're doing. But we bring our dog trainer in, so I'm just going to give him a shameless plug because he's awesome. But John Ortega from Man's Best Friend, he's just amazing. And honestly does everything with our puppies. Like, he comes in and he gets me on a program, like, this is what you're doing this week. And,
awesome.
You know, he educates our families. So we actually get our families to sit with John for a few hours, and he answers all, like, the general questions.
That's amazing in itself.
You know, he actually, this is when our families meet their puppies. So we set up a puppy picnic. And each family gets a blanket, and they have to actually do our puppy culture exercises with our puppies. So with that, we're saying we absolutely do this here. Take our puppies and do it with them. You'll see that they're fine. But then they're also learning about it, and they're also like, these are the sort of things we have to expose our puppy to. So, and then John kind of goes around and helps everyone and supports them.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's I mean, next level.
We'll probably go a little bit
fantastic.
Next level.
Can I come to?
But we also don't breed a lot. So.
You're on the podcast, so you can't say no. Can I come to a puppy picnic? Please?
Yes, do it.
Thank you.
Honestly, it's probably the best day you'll ever have in your life. Like, it's just a bunch of golden retrievers
really
running around the place. It's great.
It's
great.
Please. Can I?
It's pretty good.
I'd like to come to the picnic with the puppies.
It's like a little golden day.
And you've said yes now, and it's being recorded.
So. You can't take it back.
So I'm stuck.
You can't do it.
It's okay. You don't know where I live.
Please announce your house address.
Oh, goodness.
Oh man, I'm coming.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I've never heard any breeder talk about that before. Are other breeders doing that, Tamara?
I mean, I hope
do you know of anyone else that does that to that degree?
Everyone's pretty protective over their program and what they do. I find, but yeah, I mean, everyone does.
Wondered that. Yeah, I wondered that.
I don't know. I don't think we go pretty hardcore here. I'm not going to lie. We're maybe a bit intense, but we only breed, 1 or 2 litters a year at this point. And I've got a lot of time. I've set it up that I have a lot of time to do all this kind of stuff with our dogs when we have litters. So, yeah, I mean, it's full time.
That's amazing.
Yes. I've heard of breeders like where they try and match up their bitches' seasons and whelping and stuff, so they get like 3 litters at once, which sort of sounds like it would be easier because you could just take, that amount of time off work.
Yeah.
And handle like 30 puppies.
Yeah.
But is it like, unless if you're just working from home, I don't know. It sounds like a massive time commitment.
Yeah. And this is how you pick your breeder sometimes, like how much time are you spending with them? Are you actually committing yourself to these puppies? Because if you're not there all the time, then you're not doing any of this stuff with them. Like it's every day. I mean, I tend to take probably the first 4 to 5 weeks off work. Like, I'm lucky my clinic's on the property as well, so I can kind of run down, switch with my husband, he can look after them, But then I run my own schedule too with my clients, and they know when I have puppies coming. Half of them come up here and see them and help me socialise them, and it's great. But I've set my business up to allow for breeding. You definitely don't have a breeding business, if that makes sense. You don't, you need to work. Okay. You need to work to raise a really good litter, because it's, if you put down what you earn an hour, you're losing money.
$6. What about guardian dogs? I have come across a few people that are saying to me that they've got guardian dogs and they themselves are allowed to whelp the litters at their house.
Oh, I haven't heard much about that.
Actually blowing my mind, because I've learned a little bit about breeding. I've kept my Labrador is mains registered and entire just in case. I really regret it. I've got amazing dogs and I regretted not being able to pass them on. But I haven't decided if I'm going to breed or not. I haven't scored her or anything like that. So I've kind of been keeping an ear to the ground a little bit. Everything I learn, I'm like, obviously I'm never going to do it because it sounds very difficult. But I would be so overwhelmed with the responsibility. Like, surely this is an expert role. Are we letting guardian dogs whelp puppies in families' homes? What are we doing?
I'm not. No.
What's going on here?
No ways. Like,
that's a huge amount of.
They've had experience, but no, like
trust that you have to put into someone.
I waited 3 to 4 years to find a mentor and allow me to have a breeding dog. Like, breeders don't just give away, because these are your lines. We're also trying to
put them on the mains register.
Exactly. Yeah. We're trying to stop people that don't know what they're doing. So, I mean, I can't speak for other breeds. The Golden Retriever crew are awesome, and it just took me a little bit to find this group of people. But the people that are mentoring us have 50 years of experience behind them. Like, they've imported dogs from overseas. They know every genetic issue in these dogs. But then moreover, they mentor us to the point that, like, we have a group called the Golden Virgins, and it's for any of us that haven't bred before. So we're like just there to support each other. Cool. And it's really good because you learn a lot. Yeah. So the Golden Virgins is, that's where it's at.
Cool.
But yeah, like, it's pretty daunting. It's pretty daunting going into breeding, and it's not something you take lightly at all, because you're literally holding these lives in your hand, and you have to know. I mean, like, you have to tube feed them sometimes, like you're whelping. Yeah. Like, you're on your own. Like, we don't have vets here with us when we're doing that, like, you got to know what the green discharge is when that happens and how quick to get them to a vet. And, like we have a good team of vets behind us, luckily. But, like I just think you need those mentors, and you need to spend a lot of time making very sure this is what you want to do, because a lot goes wrong despite your best efforts. And
it goes wrong quickly.
It goes wrong really quickly. You can lose your dog, you can lose your puppies, and then you've got to be ready. You've got to be committed to this 110%. And there's a lot, like you've got to research everything before you go into breeding. You don't just like, hey, let's see what happens, that's irresponsible.
Nah.
So I wouldn't,
that's the thing.
I wouldn't
that's
be
what I
letting
thought
a guardian home do that. No.
This is what I'm thinking. So the other thing is, like, when you're talking about, like, organizing your whole life and schedule around these dogs and things like that, when they have the litters and stuff, is a guardian home expected to do that? I just think it's a phenomenal amount of responsibility. I just can't see how,
Yeah, look.
This Brumby that I got, she was in foal, which I didn't know when I went and did my Brumby camp. And I realized when I got her home, because you start to put a bit of, they settle down a bit and the foal starts moving around again and stuff. So I get her home and she's, the horses are in gestation for 11 months. She was 9 months pregnant. I found out by the time she foaled down. But I did a pregnancy test with her. Man, this horse is wild. It's great. It's such a best time of my life. But I was freaking out because foaling down a horse is a big deal.
I've done it and I will never do it again.
You can lose the foal.
No, it's horrendous.
You lose them both. It's a huge, big deal. I had cameras set up everywhere in this flippin' paddock of this horse. I hired an equine midwife, which isn't a real thing. I just harassed a very acquaintance of mine who was a breeder and was like, I'll just pay you money and you
need to deal with this.
Mostly support me emotionally. And, and she and I would be texting and I'd be, so she tapped into the cameras. You have cameras and another person can log in. She'd be at work and I'd be like, what's this? What's going on here? She's looking at her stomach. Now she's yawning. What's she doing? What's going on? And they these mares, mate, they have these false labor things and stuff like that. Hectic. She starts 6:30 at night, cleaning out the paddock. All good. Hey, Winter, how you going? Have a good day. Sweet as, mate. I'm just cleaning the paddock. Nothing weird. Come out at something. Go back inside, check cameras. There's water droplets on the camera and I can't because it's been raining. Mares foal in the rain. And I'm like, I'm just going to go clean the camera because it's going to really piss me off. So I was setting my alarm this for months, not months, weeks, at hourly or half hourly intervals during the night to wake me up to check the flippin' cameras to look at this mare. I was in love with this bloody horse, right? Had it for a month. So it was like a movie. She's, it's just wild. It's the whole thing. So I'm checking the cameras. I go out to clean the camera because I can't. She's found the one blind spot in the paddock, obviously.
Classic.
She's a legend. Go and clean it. Mate, this chick, I'm looking at her and I'm like, what are you doing, bro? She's looking at her tummy. I'm like, what's this about? Then bang, waters break.
Oh.
I was like, ah! It was 7:30 at night. Ah! I'm FaceTiming with the midwife. What do I do? I had to pull this bloody thing out of its mother. She was getting lucky I had a midwife, mate. And everyone's like, you're so extra. A bit like you were saying, Tamara, we're a bit bloody extreme out here, mate. I'm so extra about all this sort of stuff. Lucky, because she was on FaceTime. So the mare's, she's broken and you're waiting for the right presentation of the foal. And it's all this. I spent so much time researching it. And even my vet was like, look, even if we were right there, a lot of stuff that happens during foaling, you can't really save or fix. So if it's a red bag, cut it, blah, 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 blah. I had this whole foaling kit organized. It was a whole thing. And she's down and up and down and up and she's spinning. And my midwife's like, you're going to have to pull on this next contraction. Next contraction, I'm pulling. No. I'm like, oh, you have to really pull. And so she had next contraction. I pulled this thing out of her just to the shoulders and had to break the bag, clear his nostrils, sit him up, and then just left him. And she delivered the rest of him and did the rest of, I didn't interfere anymore. But if I didn't have an expert on FaceTime watching the birth going, now is you need to pull now. She's getting stressed. And this baby came out of this, Brumbies are quite little. She'd come home and I'd been feeding her. And so I think the foal bloody grew inside. Couldn't get a thing out. I was like, holy crap. Whoops. So the foals he's 2 years old now. He's a giant. Her name's Winter and his name's Thunderstorm. You know, amazing, beautiful animal that she foaled down. And people go, oh, put her in foal again. I'm like, I'd rather stab myself in the eye with a hot branding iron
didn't go through that.
than put any foal ever again. Yeah. It was so stressful.
Sounds
Tamara.
so intense.
And foaling season starts in September, and equine books where everyone complains about foaling season. We've got cat alarms on halters of mares, so when they lie down it alarms you and you run out and you're checking on them. You and really professional equine breeders say you must be there for the foaling. If you are not there, you're not being a responsible breeder. Lots of people say leave them alone.
Yeah,
they'll go
you'll
down
wake
the
up in the morning, it'll be in the paddock.
They'll wake up, it'll just be there, you know. Nah, that's
it's
not
like
real. That
maybe, but the one instance it doesn't, and you lose it's not worth it. Like
maybe, or you get a red bag and you could have just slipped it and pulled the baby out, and then they'd be fine.
Well, if you care, then you'd want to take that extra step, you know, if you care about the welfare.
So stressful.
Oh, look, I mean, I've just had a little go home a couple of weeks ago, and for the first few days I was so tired because we literally stay up with our puppies 24 hours a day for at least the first week, mostly because you're weighing them every day, like you're checking all their vitals all the time, and then you're also making sure that, especially with golden retrievers, the mother doesn't squash them. So especially our girl who has this awesome habit of just like lying on a whole litter of puppies and they're all screaming under her, and she's just like, I don't care, like whatever.
These are very noisy puppies.
Like something's happening. I don't know. So I ended up eventually one night just going like, I've got to get some sleep, but she was just being really clumsy, so I've climbed in the whelping box and just had my arms on her and the puppies between us. And we've fallen asleep together like that and like managed to get a few hours. Like it's hell. It's hell for the first 2 weeks. Like you're literally trying to keep puppies alive and yourself alive because, it's just
people don't think about that when they're looking for a puppy and they're speaking to a breeder. Like that's not the stuff that they see.
And I tell you what,
like those about puppies, the price of the dog too.
Oh yeah, hell, come and talk to me. Like honestly. And then those puppies come out and they're like little rats. They're not hedgehogs, they're little rats. And they probably actually look like that. They're just not. Some of them are blue. That's not good. But like these you do deal with
exactly. You got to be there.
You know, they come out, they're not breathing. You got to
CPR them puppies.
You're that person. So there's a lot, but you fall in love with them.
There's a lot of
so
first
quick.
aid I feel that can happen at that time.
Oh, there's more that can go wrong than go right at that point. You know, and like literally every day matters, every minute matters with them, you know. Like if they're not putting on weight, that's like a whole thing. Like we weigh them every day and like the amount of stress that comes with a puppy not putting weight on the way that they should, it's like full on, you know. You drink a lot of wine in the first 2 weeks because it's like
stressful. Yeah.
It is stressful. We would be. But you fall in love with them very quickly, and so then when things do go wrong, like it absolutely breaks your heart, you know. Like
it would.
You just get so
attached.
That's
my concern. I think I would keep a litter of puppies too if I bred them. I'd be like,
I'd find it really hard to part with them.
We'll live here forever.
Like everybody says this, and like I do, I always have a cry when the first one goes home. But you're cleaning up so much poo in that last week. And like these puppies are just so ready for these families. Like they need so much more from you than you can give. Yeah. Like I had 8 puppies every night, like sitting. I taught them all to mend, which is part of like our socialization program. They basically sit when they want something. And I've got all these 8 puppies in the kitchen with me waiting for dinner, and they're all trying to be really good, but they just lose it and they're all crying. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, you all need to just go home now. Like you feel like this parent with
little dog.
Like way too many children. It's it's a lot.
Like a bunch of 21-year-old humans that haven't moved out yet. Yeah. You're like, I really love you, but I love you so much. You have to move out.
You need to go.
I had this bearded collie, Isabel. She's in the, anyone's watching on YouTube, that's her ashes in that frame there. She died of some kind of cancer when she was 7, but when she was a baby, I contacted the breeder and she was like, yeah, I've got all these puppies, like 30 puppies. I was like, oh man, that's lucky because they're rare. And I was like, oh, that was good timing. And it was. But that by the time, I think I was like 6 weeks, I was going to go and meet them. And I went and met them. And by the time, like, she had all these girls and all these boys. And I was like, yeah, great. I'm going to, like, this is ages ago. This would have been 9 years ago. I'm thinking I'm going to, like, look at the temperaments of the puppies. Like, I have no idea. Like, no idea. And I'm like, great, I'm going to go look at them. And I rock up and she's like, got hardly any puppies. And I was like, she's like, well, that's the girl, because I had a boy Labrador. I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a girl. And there's some boys. And I was like, there was like 5 girls and 6 boys. And I was like, oh, I thought I was getting quick, like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, anyway, I play with puppies for a bit, whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, like, no idea. This one seems great, which was the girl. When I went and picked them up, she didn't let me take them until they were 10 weeks. For some vaccination issue or something like that, which I wouldn't agree to now. But back then I was like, oh yeah, okay. I go there. When I had the puppy and paid the money and done all the paperwork and everything, she's like, yeah, all the other ones died from worms. And I was like, fuck! Oh, man.
Oh, bugger.
Back then I was like, oh my God, that's so sad. Like, so when I'd rocked up and half the puppies had been wiped out, I just thought, oh, someone else has chosen the other puppies.
No.
Like, must be not up for the, it wasn't until I picked him up 4 weeks later. So I've got all these photos of me with this little puppy and I'm already in love with it. And I'm hopeless like that, mate. Like, no one shouldn't be choosing puppies anywhere. But, I just was like, it's already your dog, and so you're like, oh, okay, bye, lady. And then, like, I had problems with that dog, and then I used to see this chiropractic vet. Oh, what's his name? It was in Ormo. He's Rowan, Dr. Rowan.
Kilmartin. Kilmartin.
He's retired now. Yes, yeah. So, and I was speaking to him, and he's like, doing the history of his dog. So I said she wasn't growing, and stuff. And I was like, oh, the other puppy died from worms. And he was like, oh, well, as a very young dog, she might have had a worm burden and it might have scarred her stomach. And, that's, she might not be taking in nutrients properly and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, damn it. Okay. All right. Guess I'll feed her more or something.
It's like a whole
time ago. So many lessons.
It's a whole thing, man. And it's like nowadays, like I don't know I can't speak to what I do some pretty stupid shit still around animals, but I get pretty emotionally involved. So do what I say and not what I do, everybody.
It's hard not to.
It's so hard, but there's so much that goes into this early work and the cost of these puppies and things like that. And it is so hard not to get emotionally involved, guys. That's why I think it's a really good idea to be talking about breeders and breeding programs before you're buying a puppy, before you meet a puppy, before you don't look at any puppies, don't look at any photos of puppies, don't go meet any puppies. Really look at your breeder and your program first. So at least if you get that part right, you're a lot of the way there. And if you happen to get there and make an emotional decision, at least this is a dog that's most likely going to be healthy and very well cared for and it's given the best start in life. Please do that first. I was doing stupid stuff like, this is the only bearded collie breeder in X area. So
it's got to be her.
Yeah, it's going to be her because I'm not going, to wherever. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
So you can.
Are there any other telling questions that you would say, Tam, that people should be asking that we haven't sort of covered? Is there anything else that you reckon is a definite question?
I mean, obviously your health testing, and it's more making sure that the breeder actually knows what they're talking about when that you and you as an owner, you need to come like equipped with knowing the breed standard. You've got to know, like, if you're buying a golden retriever, like they need to be a really biddable dog, like they need, and Labradors, like they need to have that temperament. So you need to sort of come at your breeder with questions like, are you registered? And you can look them up. Like, you can ask for a breeder number. It's not offensive to a breeder. I give my number out all the time. The only issues that you might run into is if you're asking a lot of questions and you haven't really shown much commitment, in the sense that, hey, if you are the sort of breeder I want to use, I really need to have these conversations with you, and you're sort of not committing to the puppy. Like, okay, if everything falls into place, we are going to buy a puppy from you. Reason being is that we get a lot of scam artists coming, and they ask for our numbers, they ask for where we live, they ask for a lot of photographs, and so we're a little bit nervous, because then they go and create like a whole thing pretending they're the breeder, and then they scam people with all your stuff. So they're
like puppy mill puppies.
Well, they don't even have puppies. They're just taking people's money.
Well, not even puppies.
Using all of your details. So that we're a little bit sketchy, and you might find breeders like a little bit standoffish. But if you explain why you're asking, hey, we want to be using this dog for this reason, or we've done our research, we're just trying to be really informed owners, can you answer these questions? You'll get a long way. And just calling a breeder and chatting to them, like, just talk. All this back and forth on email or messages, like, you just can't gauge it. Like, I like to ring the puppy families and then have a discussion.
Because you're vetting people too, so being able to chat and get
100%. It's worse than a job interview. Like,
goes both ways.
I'm not giving anyone a puppy. I've got to trust you. Like, I've got to trust that you're going to take this baby from me and do the right thing.
I can't imagine how you've got time for that.
So you do. You make
I don't know how you've got time and patience for that, Tamara.
I mean, yeah, people can be.
We don't even have a phone number on our Therapy Dogs Australia website.
Well, it wouldn't stop ringing.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have one. Everyone emails, they're like, where's the phone number? And I'm like, oh. Keep looking.
Yeah, I mean, you do it, don't you? You love them. Got to do it.
It's your love of the breed.
Yeah, and when you're giving away parts of something that you've had such a big hand in breeding, and, they're essentially extensions of yourself in a way. So, I think don't feel like you can't ask a breeder anything. Ask. Definitely talk about their health. Definitely ask, what kind of training have your adult dogs done? What conditions are they living in? Like, do they live in the house with you, or do you have like a set up kennel? A lot of bigger breeders are going to have kennels, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. As long as those dogs are being socialized properly, they're getting out and about, they're not just being locked up constantly. A lot of breeders won't really let you into their homes to see the puppies until you've probably paid a deposit. And it's refundable if you're not happy with what you're seeing. But you've got to show the commitment too, with a lot of breeders now, and really good breeders will expect that of you. So, yeah.
We've heard before too. You can ask to FaceTime.
Oh yeah, we've done it
as well.
Yep.
With the breeders,
especially if you're interstate, so
you can kind of see the setup before you drive to wherever.
Exactly. Yeah. So I sold a couple of puppies to Sydney this time around. And we did FaceTime, and they actually ended up flying, because we do the day with our trainer. They ended up, all the puppy families flew from wherever they were, most of them Sydney. Just for the day.
I would fly for a puppy picnic.
Yeah. So that was good, but I sat in the whelping box. I was like, here's Mom. Obviously, Dad's not with us. We use stud dogs from all around the place. Instagram's another one, like following breeders on Instagram or on their Facebook. Or
what's your Instagram, Tamara?
Whiskey River Retrievers. So Whiskey River is one word, _
We are following.
And also,
but watch what they do. Do they go out showing? That's another big thing. Like, do you compete your dogs or show your dogs or do anything? Because the thing with the show ring, even though it can be a little bit subjective, you're still taking your dog and you're going and you're putting them up against other dogs in confirmation, so that you're getting out there and saying, these are the best of the best. Like, these dogs are well bred. We're bringing them out to really prove ourselves here. And just the fact of getting a dog to a dog show, there's a lot of stuff happening around for those dogs. So if your breeders are actually committing themselves to doing that, it just shows a real love and passion for the breed. Shows or agility or whatever, if you're into sporting, if you're into gun dog things. But it's just basically, what are you doing? I'm just chilling there with. Oh, yeah, that's us.
Puppy picnic.
That was the puppy picnic.
If you're on YouTube, I'm just showing my phone up to the screen and we're looking at puppy. There is actually all these blankets.
That is a picnic.
And puppy families.
Aww. And I tell you what, you get to know how people are with the puppies, because they're having to do just we're making them like go on the scary bridge, like we make the dogs walk on different surfaces. Like we're putting the puppies under a bit of pressure, and the families. And it's interesting to see what families have got it all together and which ones are like they've lost the puppy down the park and they're running, and you're like, okay, you're gonna need a lot more support. Like you need me. All the ones that are just
like,
all over it.
Yeah,
like,
puppy.
Yeah.
They all look the same. Oh my God, hilarious. It's amazing.
Yeah, but I just think the biggest thing is get that relationship with the breeder and chat to them, and don't come in hard with the how much do you charge question first, because I think that's probably not.
It's
not
probably quite telling as well.
Unless you're gonna say, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Exactly. Or having the argument about price, that's always bad, because you can hear what we go through. And the amount of money we spend outside of just the litter. Like all my dogs see a dog trainer, they go to the vet when they need it. They're all pet insurance. I get 6 dogs on pet insurance. Like it's insane, like the amount of money you're spending.
3 dogs and a cat on pet insurance. Lord help me.
Yeah, it's a lot. So you got to be respectful of just that process too, because there's this real stigma at the moment that breeders just do it for the money, and that's just so not true. It's really not. We wouldn't put ourselves through this. It's not worth the money. You got to do it because you love it. You got to do it because this breed is important to you. Good dogs are important to you. That's got to be the focus, and you'll tell pretty quick when you're chatting to a breeder whether their heart's in it or not. Most of the time, a breeder that's not willing to answer your questions, is a bit offhand with you, is sort of whatever, just come and get a puppy. Like, don't do it, just don't.
Yeah, red flag.
If they're not, yeah. And look, all of our health records, if you've got pedigree dogs, all your health records are on Canine Data. So you can actually go and say to the breeder, hey, what's the registered name of the dam and the sire? And you can go and look it up. Like you can tell what their hip scores are and that this breeder's doing everything.
Nice.
Like, there's nothing to hide. So no breeder should be trying to hide anything. But protecting their puppies and protecting themselves against, people that are obviously not serious or using you as a bit of a scam, that's a different situation. So just be mindful of that if, a breeder's being a little bit cagey, but everything else seems fine, it's probably just that. They're just being a little bit cautious.
There's so many cute photos on your Instagram.
It's so cute. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I've got them behind me. Guys. That was my very first litter.
Oh.
And they're all sitting in the back of our Polaris on the farm. So we take them up to the dam and they see all different things, and they know cows and all these.
Yeah, there's a cow licking a dog.
Yeah, so that's Aussie. That's our main. That's our foundation.
There's a cow licking a dog here. It's bloody amazing.
She loves animals.
I enjoyed that. So Whiskey River _retrievers got a website as well, and I've noticed just through scrolling through here now, you've got looks like some blogs on or info sort of things on your page about choosing a breeder as well.
Yeah, we do a little bit of educational stuff on there.
Got a little bit of education and stuff on there as well. So jump on there, guys. Go and have a look. There's obviously so much that we could cover. We've, been with Tamara for over an hour now, so we'll wrap this up. But we might come back and talk to you again, Tamara, and talk a little bit more about the next stage.
I feel like there's definitely
there's a lot
a need for
so that's episode. Austin, and the cow's name's
that
Patricia.
That is so cute.
And this is not
what a moment Austin, to capture.
Oh my gosh, Austin, from when she was a tiny puppy, just loves other animals. We literally have a video of her. I don't know if it's on my Instagram, but the farrier came out and I wasn't here, and Ozzy had come down to the shed or whatever, and she's lying on her back and the horse is just licking her tummy and just licking her everywhere. And she's just lying there I'm just fine. She's actually not one we bred. That was our foundation girl we got from our mentors. And they do a really good job as well. So, clearly this dog's super well adjusted. So
yeah, so cool.
Yeah, it's a fun environment for them to grow up in, for sure.
Thank you so much,
Thank
mate.
you.
That was fascinating.
So welcome.
I'm going to be dreaming about it tonight, just processing all this information.
Absolutely fascinating.
I could talk for days on this, honestly.
So cool. So cool.
It's fun.
I think we'll have another chat.
We'll have to come back.
There's
Yeah,
more.
definitely.
This is a huge area for us, Tamara, and we don't really know that much about it. You know, we're not breeders, so we'd love to, you know, talk more and pick your brain and things like that and help puppy parents to prepare. But I think this chat today has been a really, really good way to start getting people thinking about, you don't know what you don't know. And so look at all this stuff you didn't know. Let's start thinking about that stuff and what else do you not know and who can you be in contact with to start wrapping your head around this stuff. So I think it's a really great conversation starter, and yeah, please come back and chat with us
definitely.
again.
And
I
for
reckon it's a
anyone
good
that wants
idea
to get...
for...
No, you
Go ahead.
you go. Sorry, Tam.
I was just
Oh,
going
I was just going to say for anyone...
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus.
I was just going to say for anyone that wants to get in touch with you, Tam, for any extra information, I'll list your website in the description.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thanks.
What were you
I
going
was
to
going to say,
Sorry.
go onto the Puppy Culture website because there's heaps of free stuff for families. Like, you don't have to be a breeder to do it. From weeks, I think she says from like weeks, she sends them home at 10 weeks, but you go from week 8 all the way through. She gives you exercises to do with your puppy when they come home. And there's like videos. There's a whole thing on like, she did a whole free thing when COVID hit on how to socialize your puppy, and regardless of COVID, watch it. Like,
so good.
Awesome. It's so good and it's all free. So hop on there.
All right, well, I'll put the link in the description for that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well worth it.
See you later, ladies.
So welcome, guys. It's lovely to chat to you.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you're interested in studying with Therapy Dogs Australia or you have a few more questions before deciding, please get in touch with us by emailing courses@therapydog.com.au or visiting our website at www.therapydog.com.au for more information and FAQs.